Everyone, Joe coming to you from Better World Coffee in Milford, Pennsylvania. What a great spot. And the reason I'm here today for Monday Morning Coffee is I'm heading down to Dingman's Falls, which is maybe a 15-minute ride south of here. And Dingman's Falls has some great waterfalls. There's a handful of photography topics I'd like to explore, so let's go down there and see what we can find today. I've just arrived at Dingman Falls, and I can hear that the water's running pretty hard. We've had a lot of rain over the past 3 days, so that was to be expected, and that's going to cause me to adjust my shutter speeds. But that's not what I'm here to talk about in this episode. I want to talk about shooting RAW versus shooting JPEGs. And for those of you that know me, you might think, Joe, you're thinking about shooting JPEGs. And the answer is sometimes, yes. Now, you might have noticed sometimes that when you take a shot with your digital camera, that what you see in the viewfinder looks better, actually, than what you see when you bring it into your RAW processor. I know a lot of times when I bring an image into Lightroom, the file that I saw in my camera looked better. The reason for that is your camera's showing you the JPEG. And typically your camera has some kind of film simulation or scene simulation in it as well. However, when you bring a RAW file in, that is scrubbed out, it's gone. So what's the solution? Well, what I'm going to do here today is I've got my camera set to shoot both RAW file and a JPEG at full quality, and I've got this camera set to Velvia. So we're going to take a look and see how good these are. Now, a lot of people poo-poo JPEGs because they think, oh, they don't have as much data, which is true. They're not as editable, also true. However, they also have some advantages. First of all, a JPEG right out of the camera is really a pristine file. Where JPEGs start to fall apart is when you do an edit and save it, and then look at it again and edit it and save it again. That's what causes damage to the file. But a first generation JPEG is a very good file. So we're going to go down to this cascade. It's one of my favorite places to come visit when I have an hour or so. I'm only about a half an hour from my house, and I'm going to do some shots with both RAW and JPEG, and we'll take a look at the results, and then we'll discuss the reasons where it is something you might want to consider. So let's go get some shots. So here we are at one of the smaller cascades, and when we look at the JPEG shot, you can see, yeah, the shadows are dark, the bright areas are close to blown out, but let's see if we can edit it. Now the RAW, on the other hand, same thing, but the highlights look a lot safer. However, when we convert the JPEG to an edit, it's better, but the shadows are getting really dangerously close to pure black. Take a look at the RAW edit. When you bring that up, everything is recovered. So we get a full recovery. RAW file wins here. So then I moved down to the main falls. Here's the full Dingman's Falls in all its power, and we shot some shots here. Now let's take a look at the JPEG first, and it's looking pretty good. The highlights and shadows were adjusted, but that was it. But here's the same RAW file with the same adjustments, and you can see the JPEG is really in a finished state. And when we look even closer at the detail, here's the RAW file seen up close, and let's take a look at the same spot as a JPEG. And you can see that it's a finished shot and it's sharper because sharpening's been applied. JPEG wins here. So walking through the woods, I stopped and took some other shots. This lovely forest scene. This is the RAW file, and here is the JPEG. Now you notice also there's a change in the perspective because the JPEG has a lens correction built into it. I give the edge to the JPEG on that one. Now here is a JPEG shot of the stream, and here is the RAW file. In this case, I give a slight edge to the RAW file because the blacks in the JPEG just went too dark and could not be recovered. Now this was a scene that I knew going in, the JPEG just was not going to be able to handle. It was extremely high contrast. I had to protect the flowing water, and this is an edited file, and I could just not bring the shadows back. It was impossible. Here is the same shot as its RAW file, and look how everything came back. I was able to maintain the water, yet bring up all the shadows, and that allowed me to take 4 shots and actually create this panoramic of this particular spot that really tells so much of a better story of the place. And you can see obviously the RAW wins clearly here. Now in the JPEG's defense, I was shooting Velvia, which is a very saturated, contrasty simulation. We might have done better with Provia, and I'll do some more testing on that in the future. So what did I learn? Well, if you have a really extremely high contrast scene like these two, this one and the Cascade, JPEG is going to struggle to maintain the shadows. However, if the scene is better lit, something like this shot actually looked better as their JPEG counterparts. So the answer is, it depends. Depends on the scene. If you don't have too much contrast, by all means do it. And what I'd really recommend is go ahead and shoot them both, because then you can take a quick look and see which one is going to be best to share with the world. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you again soon for another Monday Morning Coffee. Have a great week. Bye-bye.